Every week we do a Q&A with interesting and accomplished members of the adaptive community to find how they persevered, how they innovated, how they built communities, and how they found solutions. Welcome to the Nametags Chat Podcast. Welcome to the Nametags Chat Podcast. Today we have Danelle Umstead and we have Rob Umstead, who are a team. They are a visually impaired and guide team, three-time Paralympians, three-time medalist, bronze medalist, 53 podiums for visually impaired, MS, first ever blind contestant on Dancing with the Stars. That would be Danelle, not Rob. Thank you guys for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for clearing that too, because I got no dance moves.
Yeah.
we know. I think the last time you were on, I asked you how intimidating it was for you to go to weddings now that you have a professional dancer as your wife.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank goodness we haven't been invited to one.
Well, thank goodness for Rob, that's for sure. Maybe you haven't been going to weddings, but you have been all over getting ready for Beijing. How are things going? I mean, this is one, you're not on the US team, right? At this point?
Yeah, we are not on the US team. In 2018, right after Pyeongchang, I just had ups and downs with my multiple sclerosis, which in the end prevented us from skiing and racing 2018-2019 season, which ended up a result of us not qualifying for the team because I was injured. And so unfortunately, we didn't make that team. And then we got back on snow 2019 and we skied on our own and really enjoyed just getting back to the way we started. So we really started skiing good and went into some races here in Park City, Utah, and really did well there and went over to Canadian Nationals and we're skiing really well and ended up crashing and breaking my tibia and fibula and have had like 3 surgeries since then. So we've been on a long road, but
gearing up lately.
Gearing up lately.
Yeah, because I mean, it's not like you don't have your obstacles, right? I mean, the visually impaired of it. So losing your central vision, your peripheral vision, having just that little bit of light and shape differentiation. Though when I did put my finger up, as we were talking earlier, you recognized that I had put one finger up.
I did.
I think you did. Well, because you corresponded. So maybe it was just I don't want to get you in trouble with any classifiers or anything, but
no, why did you put your finger up?
I know when we were talking before, I forget we were talking about something and I put my finger up that there was we were talking about just team members, that there's one woman on the team.
I just put my finger up.
And you must have put yours up at the same time. I thought you were mirroring me.
No, not at all. Just I'm like,
she does hear your thoughts though.
I do. Be scared. If I start to know you really well, I can hone in on what you're feeling, what you're thinking. You're in big trouble.
Well,
yeah,
which is really helpful for you guys.
Yes.
Being guide and visually impaired athlete to be able to hear thoughts. What is that like? I've been watching the World Championships, and there's some visually impaired athletes that are right on top of their guide, and some that are 2 gates out in your class, in the B2 class. So maybe first describe what the B2 class means, and then how you try to, what the objective is between guide and athlete.
B2. So there's 3 levels of vision ability or
classifications, but there's a pretty big spectrum within those classes. With the exception of B1s, because they're blacked out goggles, no light, so they're all on the same page.
And then B3, I mean, I don't know the exact numbers. I just know B3s can see better than me and B1s are blacked out and I'm right in the middle. I mean, that's basically it. I mean, there's so many people, like I use a cane, I use a guide dog, and there's so many people in my class that don't even use a cane. And it's, so there's such a wide spectrum of vision within each class, and
then there's variables day to day. Some people see better when it's bright, and some people don't see hardly at all when it's bright, and they do better when it's dark within our class. So, like everything else in skiing, there's a lot of variables, and sometimes you get lucky with those.
The unfortunate part is nobody else has another disability like I do, which I have multiple sclerosis, which affects my body and my brain and the communication between the two. And us too. Okay, so we got totally sidetracked.
What is the objective? What are you guys trying to do, guide and athlete? Like, I mean, is Rob setting a particular line? You're trying to be inside of it? Are you trying to maintain a certain level of proximity? What are the objectives?
I mean, yes to all of the above, but the objectives can change on a daily basis due to if there's fresh snow on the ground, if the lighting's different. I mean,
crosswind.
Like
then I gotta be careful not to dump any speed on my upwind turns, because that's just gonna blow a big cloud in front of her. And if I gotta try to reel her in, I gotta do that on the other side and blow it away. And
definitely our objective is to stay close, stay tight, because the further Rob gets from me, the more defensive skiing I do. Like you can tell in my skiing how defensive it is if he gets, I mean, we are not even a gate apart. We're very close, and you will see in my skiing directly, if we're not close, my skiing is going to get super defensive. And I can't actually see Rob through all the turn, but I can pick him up within the turn, maybe 1 or 2 times if we're close enough. And that's enough to keep me skiing aggressively.
And so other people, to get back to your original question, like, if you don't have central vision, and you're right on top of your guide, you're not going to see him. So too close sometimes doesn't work for everybody. So I think that's getting back to your question. You see a discrepancy based on the variances in people's field of vision. I mean, I guess you probably remember before our time, there was somebody that their guide used to go down the side of the course, and they made a rule that wasn't allowed anymore because he didn't really need him, and he was just getting in the way. So it varies depending on the people.
There was one that I saw that kind of blew me away. Chris Williamson,
yep,
in Switzerland, and his guide.
Canada, right?
Canada. Yeah. Well, it was in Switzerland. The race was in Switzerland. Oh, okay. Canada. Yep. And there was a dog leg out of the downhill, and his guide fell coming out of the start. And Chris just kept going, like just did the whole dog leg, and the guide beelined it and picked him up at the bottom of the dog leg, and you kind of go, all right. Well,
all right.
That might have been the creation of that rule.
That's awesome. But yeah, so our objective is to stay tight, stay close, have that communication. Like, it's all about communication and, practicing the right communication. Even, I mean, I'm like, you can't be silent for a minute. I can tell when he's thinking about something, but I need to know what's going on in the back of the bus, because it's pretty freaky about that back there if you're not telling me what's happening. And I know sometimes he's trying to get us through crowds or whatever it may be, but you can't have like just a moment of nothing, or I'm like, what the hell's going on? Like, I'm standing up.
I'm like Tom Brady. I'm reading the defenses, and then I got to make split-second decisions.
Exactly. But unlike Tom Brady, you actually have a microphone, and Danielle has a speaker, and she has a microphone as well, right? So you can communicate back and forth. So this is the constant communication. Is this why they haven't allowed a husband and wife team to be in the visually impaired on the US team? Is this why you guys are the first ones?
What are you getting at?
I don't know. It sounds like communication is a really big deal.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and then within, you talked about spacing, and our whole thing is, the timing of the turn and the turn shape kind of matching up, and if our spacing's good, everything else works. And when our spacing gets inconsistent, then the timing's off, and I tell her I'm starting my turn, but she's too far back to know exactly where that is, and then
it just goes
it spirals from there. So that's what we work on, is keeping it tight.
And there's days where we just are not in sync, and we all have good days and we all have bad days, and there's those days where it's like, God, why can't we just ski in the same groove? And today we rocked it. It was like, oh my God, it was amazing.
Which is great. And
Yeah.
the thing is, as you said, there are different conditions, there are different lights, so light visibility can be a problem. And what's the optimal? I mean, like, is it like 2 ski length kind of things? Is that where it's optimal for you guys, or do you not even think about it in those terms?
We don't think about it in those terms. I mean, like, at least I don't. He might.
Well, I mean, just that's like 2 to 3 is probably where we want to be. And, less than 2 is probably too close. 1, she doesn't have any central vision, so she loses me some there. And then sometimes she doesn't have a lot of good depth perception, so she thinks she's going to run into me, which has never happened. But, so then she checks on her, ditches some speed because she's worried about hitting me. So
I'll just see the orange and yellow all of a sudden. I'll be like, oh my gosh, all right, I'm gonna hit it.
Ray Watkins used to say, like, just keep her in your pocket. What definition of pocket varies from everybody, but I think our pocket is probably 2 to 3 ski lanes.
But anything beyond 3, I'm done.
You're done. And that's where you stand up. That's where the hips drop.
Yeah,
where
everything.
Butt
goes
the gorilla
back.
stance. Yeah.
And it's probably it's equivalent to you or I skiing into a fog bank. Like we do the same thing. We'd be like, whoa. And instead of being in the front and really driving, you're all of a sudden you're back on your heels going, uh-oh. And that's kind of what happens.
Yeah. And I mean, even going from like, on some slopes around Park City, like you go from the light and it's really bright and sunny, our beautiful bluebird days, and all of a sudden it just goes into this dark hole where it's just trees and there's just no sunshine hitting it.
Treasure Hollow, that run at Park City, like it gets dark in the hollow.
Yeah. That's like, for me, that's like hitting a brick wall. Like, you guys, Rob, I'm always like, you have to have me like in your pocket, so close, and just like pretend I'm completely blind, because it takes more than seconds for my eyes to switch over.
To adjust.
Where it takes you guys, regular sighted people, milliseconds, and mine is like 1, 2, 3, and I'm like, oh God.
In the meantime, she's nauseous.
I'm like, I'm gonna throw up.
It's snowing out, by the way. That's a good
Woo!
There we go. What can you do as techniques to be able to combat that, right? Because this is going to happen, and obviously Rob, in a lot of ways, is your eyes,
right?
If I'm allowed to say that way.
Absolutely.
is your vision, really, and you have to have that sort of belief that it's like, okay, we're still okay. I'm not going to be able to see for 3 seconds, which is sort of like, I just talked to like Brian Friedman about running Kitzbühel. And that's one of those where it gets so rough at the bottom that you can't really just focus.
Yeah.
Like your eyes don't actually focus, and you're going approaching 90 something miles an hour going, okay, keep it pointed in the right direction and the vision will come back. Is there a part of it that you do like that?
Well, obviously, yes. I mean, if the communication gets a little more, he tells me you're okay, which is so settling for me. Just those small words, you're okay, it's clear, and he keeps me really close going into the dark and tells me when we're approaching it. If he doesn't, then it's like, come on.
Yeah, so I kind of recognize the spots that are gonna give her that feeling, and now I'm getting good at calling out, shadow, that kind of thing. Because otherwise she'll be like, did the cloud just come, or the lights just go out? Am I okay?
Somebody is like,
why did it just get dark? Am I blacking out? Like, no, it's all good. So yeah, staying close going in, because if there's already a gap before the shadow, then it's
over.
Bad. But if she's got something focused into there, and then I tell her it's coming, and believe it or not, like Di on a speed course or a GS really helps her get down.
Oh, interesting.
And she likes to say it's because it's not moving. I'm moving. Like, it's hard to focus on me because I'm zipping back and forth around the gates, and the Di's like, oh, that's just there, and she can see it on the white snow, the dark blue, and For some reason, the Canadians are really good at dye. Like we call it Canadian Royal Blue. When they put the dye down, it's like super dark. And
I mean, I
really
can't
pops.
like when he says I can see it, it's not like I can see the whole run, but I can pick that out more than I can pick Rob, Gates, or anything out, because there's so much of it in a speed course, you know, like I can see and it doesn't move. Like the gates are too small and are in different places, but the dye is just a consistent dark blue.
And you've been up on Mount Hood when the cloud comes across and all of a sudden you don't know if you're moving or stopped, and just that's the feeling she's getting, that vertigo kind of sensation
all the time.
But the dye is something to focus on, and or something with the contrast that gives her a little grounding.
Right. It anchors you, which is great. How much does your experience help you? I mean, it's been a long time, right? Since 2008 that you've been skiing together.
It helps greatly. Like it's the experience helps and can also hurt you, you know? I mean, there's two sides to that story. The experience helps me because I know I can get through so many races and so many runs, and we've been through all of this and we've changed our communication, but the experience can also hurt you because, you know, all the fears that can come up and all the anxiety and the accidents and the, you know, like, so it's good and bad.
You no longer have the beginner's mind.
Yeah. So when we were going into 2010, we had no clue what we were doing. I mean, we were ski racing and we were training for it, but like, we didn't know what to expect and we didn't have any pressures or anything like that. So it was like winning 2 bronze medals in 2010. I was like, wow, we did that. Like, but now it's, you know, you have the pressures and the experience that you know what to expect. And so it can hurt you a little bit too, in my mind.
And I'd imagine you hear a bit in Rob's voice where he's like, you're okay. And you're like, that's not the you're okay.
Yes.
Really okay?
You're okay?
Yes, I totally, like, oh my gosh, he like, even if he says something in a different way, it cracks me up. I'm like, what do you mean? There's something wrong. What is going on? Like in the middle of our run, I'm like, no. What is going on? Just the way he says hot or something.
When it's busy out on the mountain and we're getting ready to take off down a public run, you know, it's like, go. You know, I'm trying to time it between waves of people coming by. Go, and she's like, nope.
I'm not going anywhere.
Don't start over. Okay. And that goes both ways. I mean, I've gotten feedback from her on the headsets, and it's like, you know, sometimes she'll say go, and sometimes she'll be like, go, and it's like, okay, I gotta go.
Shit, I'm in trouble. I mean, sorry, that's fun. Yeah, it's definitely we've learned how. I mean, I can even tell by his breathing when he's excited. I can tell by his breathing when he's like, oh my God, I'm talking way too much. I can tell by, you know, by his breathing where he's like, oh, that turn wasn't so good. I mean, like, I can tell the way, the tone. I mean, it's pretty intense how much I can read him without even telling me how he's feeling or how he's doing. It's pretty amazing, actually.
You know what else is crazy with visually impaired skiing is, and it's, you know, when we first got on the team, and Ray, you know, Ray Watkins was the head coach then, and he came from a guiding background and did a lot to help us. But he was always like, you gotta paint a picture as a guide. You gotta, you know, the body position has to be perfect, and you gotta really illustrate all that. I'm like, she can't see that. No. But then you go to a World Cup and you watch guides and they're visually impaired athletes, and they all ski alike. Like it's contagious. Like if the guide skis one way, the athlete kind of picks up on that. And if the guide's lazy, and then say in a slalom, that inside hand's always dropping, all of a sudden the visually impaired athlete's doing the same thing. So there's more of a connection than just through the vision. Like it's something about the whole experience of that team bonding and going down the course that everything becomes one, and you kind of mimic each other. And I can ski like Danielle, and she can ski like me, and we're the same.
Which is really hard though, because I mean, a guide is a difficult job. I mean, one, you have the responsibility for your athlete to ski fast. You have your responsibility for the athlete to be safe. You have the responsibility
to close.
What's that?
Behind you sometimes going.
Yeah, he has to look behind him and make sure we're close so our timing's right.
Well, that's where I was getting, is that you have to make the turn, but then you have to be able to look back and make sure that she is okay, so that you're not falling. I mean, the worst, I mean, it's got to be the worst part for a guide if you fall and knock Danielle out of the race. But then also, tactics, and then what you're talking about, skiing well and creating an image for her to follow. How long did it take you? You came from a racing background, Rob. How long did it take you, or is it still taking you to be able to feel comfortable in that position?
I mean, you get better at it, and it's a lot of trial and error. There's no guidebook on how to guide, right. And the first thing we tell young VI teams is like, hey, what we do may or may not work for you guys. So you guys got to figure it out on your own, and figure out what the athlete needs and what works for you. And but I'll tell you, like, coming from a ski racing background and then being an able-bodied coach for a while, and it's like I was getting kind of fried on that, just the whole day in and day out. And stepping into this guide role, it was like a whole new twist on something I've been doing for a long time that I love, that kind of breathed fresh air into the whole thing. And it was another challenge. And so the first World Cup we ever went to in Whistler, the year before the games, like, we're in the slalom and I'm fired up, like, here we go. And I fire out of the gate, and I hear this weight. I'm like, oh yeah. And it's a team sport. Like, it's not just me. And that was the hardest part. Like, you got to be willing to, like, I think I heard a story about, like, I think Mike Krzyzewski says, like, you got to give up something on your end for the good of the team.
Right.
And he's talking basketball. So if you're a great shooter, but you got to be willing to pass. And it's the same thing with this guide athlete relationship. Like, you have to be willing to do what you do to get you both. Do what you have to do to get both of you down the hill as quickly as you can, and as safely as you can. And I'll tell you, the biggest challenge is skiing out with the public on a busy day.
Oh God.
I'd imagine.
Because everybody's bombing all over the place. Race hills, that's a safe environment. Like, it's just us, and we got it to ourselves, and we know somebody's not going to pop out of the trees and cut us off. Or, when I'm wearing the guide bib, people sometimes think I work for the ski area, and they're like, hey, how do I get to the ski school? And I'm like, I have no idea. And they're like, what do you mean? And they probably file a comment like, the guide was very rude. I'm like, well, sorry, I'm not here for you. But we've had people actually get between us. Hey, there's a guide, let's follow him. And they just cut her off. It's like,
that happens a lot.
So that's the scariest thing. And then it's way more variables when the public's involved. And that's one of the reasons Danielle likes to race. It's like,
that is interesting. Now, you talked about Ray Watkins. Danielle, I remember Ray saying when he was in Lillehammer with Brian Santos, that he basically said to Santos, I'm going to go, you keep up.
Yeah,
nice.
That sounds like Ray.
It totally does.
What happens if Rob says that to you?
Yeah, they had a different relationship, I guess. He didn't have to go home.
Yeah.
Didn't have to go home together.
I mean, Rob does say, like, catch me. I'm not waiting for you. Like, we'll do that. And it's pretty fun. We have a good time. Like, but in all fairness, like, he can see and I can't. So if he does that, that's really rude. And he's just leaving me at a disadvantage. But when we get in places like when we're powder skiing, or we get in places where it's like open and free, like, he'll let me ski in front of him and tell me when things are coming up, and, give me that freedom, and we have a good time.
But not necessarily in the race course where he's trying to get you to stretch a little bit and say, I'm going.
No, he'll tell me to chase me, and he needs to do that.
And that race approach with Brian might have worked great for Brian's personality. But we always say, like, when things get really tough, our relationship, she knows I've got her getting down the hill safely as priority one. And having that confidence in me can go a long way when it gets to be some gnarly conditions, where some of these guide athletes that are, paired up by their national federations or that kind of thing and aren't that close. We always think there's probably some doubt in the VI's mind when things get tough about how safe they actually are. So checkbox for us, advantage us in those situations. We hope.
We think we put that in our own minds at least.
We like to put it in their minds too. He doesn't give a crap about you.
No, we don't. Oh my gosh.
He gets paid either way.
That's awful.
This leads to the psychological part too, right? Because there is a lot. I mean, Danielle, you're overcoming the visually impaired, which is interesting because I mean, you call yourself blind. The category is visually impaired.
Yeah.
And is that okay? One versus the other? Do you care?
I don't care. I don't care either way. Like, I like to call myself a blind girl. I went from being so embarrassed all through growing up because I couldn't see and I wore thick glasses and was bullied and all of that. Like, I went from trying to hide it to now being like, hey guys, I'm a blind girl and this is who I am, and like, accept me or you don't, because I like who I am, you know? So yeah, I kind of name tag myself.
There you go. Well done.
Yeah.
Thank you. This is bringing it all full circle to the Nametags Chat podcast. We appreciate it.
Yes, you like that, didn't you?
Yeah, exactly. But you don't necessarily see it as a limitation, which is the idea of the podcast. I mean, you're out there skiing, but you have the blind part of it. Then you have the MS, which is the unpredictable part of it that you don't really know where you're going to go. And then you had the broken leg, which has brought PTSD, panic attacks, these kinds of things. How do you
talking about that gives me anxiety?
Anxiety? Am I giving you anxiety already? Yes. I'm sorry.
No, I'm okay. But it does make my heart like skip a little bit, you know, like, oh yeah, that's some hard stuff.
Well, that is the obstacle for every athlete, right? I mean, the mental side of it, to be able to perform the way that you can perform and sort of get your mind and your fear and your anxiety out of the way. That's the objective. But for you, there are a few real things that are kind of in that way. How have you approached sort of the mental aspect and being able to perform?
Yeah, so our first race is coming back from my third surgery, going back to Canada where I broke my leg, and not the exact same spot, but just being in Canada gave me a little bit of anxiety that I didn't even realize I had. Like, I was going into it like, okay, I'm ready. We got this. And I went out to ski the day before. I mean, I had skied one day, and then the next day I'm like, we were supposed to ski race the next day, and I went into full panic attack, PTSD, anxiety. I could not ski. I could not turn. I could not ski. My son was there. My Rob was there. I'm like, I can't do this. Like, I totally freaked out. And at that point, I knew I can work through it. Like, I tried. I went back out there. Rob made me go back out, and I just couldn't work through it. I had to step back, and I had to like be by myself. I asked Rob to go away. Like, I needed to meditate. I needed to remember, just be in my own mind and let go of all of these things. And it was hard. And I told him, I'm not racing tomorrow. I'm not going to race. I'm not even going to put myself through that because I am not mentally ready. I mean, the feeling that I had, I literally was crippled. Like, my chest hurt. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't ski. And I mean, that feeling was awful. So I was like, I just need to go back out and ski and train, and slowly worked it back. And by the end of that series, I was like, okay, I'm ready to go into the starting gate. And it was for a slalom, which I knew it's not my best event. And I knew it's a little bit slower for me. And I just went out and did my best for the day. And then I was like, okay, I just had to start back up and do little steps to just build that confidence back up. And, we just this past weekend went to Sun Valley, and I was a little nervous because it was the first time to be back in speed gates before since our crash and race mode. And I just kept my coat on, you know, like I do little things that will just make me think like, okay, I'm getting back into it. And so, I mean, having a strong mental mind is constant work. Like I've had sports psychology, and that has helped me so much, but I also have to go back to my routine where it's meditation, a cup of coffee, reminding myself, self-talk, like being good to myself and reminding myself like, hey, you're allowed to have these moments. You're allowed to step back and be like, I'm not ready right now. I've been going nonstop through MS, through all these situations, and just kind of going head first and beating my head against the wall, like no matter what, and getting through it. But this one, I was like, I gotta step back. Like I am not ready. It was pretty intense. Like,
which is pretty amazing.
Yeah,
that you were able to take that step back, because this is a Paralympic year.
it is.
You are, you said you're not on the team right now, but trying to get on the team for Beijing.
Yes.
So with that clock ticking the whole time makes it remarkable that you were able to say, no, the healthy part is to take the step back, to meditate. I'm not sure how meditation and coffee work together, but
coffee is like my moment. Like every morning I have my cup of coffee and I just want to be in my own space. Like it is like part of my meditation. I know that doesn't seem right, but yes, it is. And it's like another thing about me is like listening to a song, or, like I go through these things, and then I have ways of working out and stretching. Like I just start going through my process. And I feel like going into Beijing, like I'm either going to make it or I'm not, but I'm going to be my strongest if I do. And that was not going to help me in my mind. Like going into those races with the feelings I had at that moment, it wasn't worth it. Like there's no way. I'm not going to do that to myself. And that's where the experience comes in, And that's where I was like, you know what? I've pushed myself down a hill because I was not feeling good with my MS. My right leg wasn't working. My brain wasn't talking to the right side. I've done all these things that, because I'm such a competitor, that I've just put myself out there knowing it wasn't going to be pretty, but it was the best I could do for the day. But this situation, I was like, no, I'm out. Like, no.
And that wasn't the first time you've done that. I mean, there's been days where we've been in Europe and she wakes up and she's like, I can't go today. Like I'm not feeling good, like MS or whatever. Like
I can't.
Nope. And I'm just like, okay.
I just can't do it. Like, yeah, but that one was more like the MS part I get. This one was like more of my mental state. Like it was really messed up. And it wasn't like I was panicked. It was like something was holding me back. And I just had this weight on my chest and in my head. And I was embarrassed because my son was there and I'm like, I can't ski. Like I have to work through this on my own. It was intense.
It sounds like there's a bit of a routine that helps you. I mean, with the meditation, with the coffee, you said the music is there anything in particular that you listen to beforehand that kind of gets you in that mindset?
Yeah, I have certain songs of certain, like, it depends on what mood I'm in, like Rise Up, which it was my first song that I danced to on Dancing with the Stars. Rise Up by Andre Day. I've always listened to that song. That song has always brought me out. Another one, You Say. I mean, there's so many, it just depends on what I'm needing, but music motivates me. It paints me a picture in my mind. Like it helps me get going if like I want to listen to Michael Fronte and I want to get the song grooves on or whatever it may be. But music does paint me a picture and kind of helps me set the tone that I need in my mind.
Which is so important. And does that help you in the start when you think, okay, it's painted the picture. Now, in some ways, it's kind of like you're living that song, or at least because skiing is such a rhythmic sport, isn't it? Where it's like, okay, and when it doesn't go well, it often is about the lack of rhythm, that you just couldn't find the rhythm of the course, which for you guys must be even more challenging because it's not just one of you trying to find the rhythm.
Dance together.
We dance together, baby.
Yeah.
It is, yeah, and I can only imagine. And And so looking at, because part of this is you've dealt with it. And you also have to think about it as like, am I getting stronger? Like having dealt with this, I've seen the PTSD and having faith in yourself to say, you know, I've addressed that and I sort of have a strategy. Is that how you feel coming out of it?
Yeah, I mean, the really great feeling coming out of it is trusting myself. Like, I mean, I trust myself to make the right decision. And at first, you know, if you have to step away from something big, I mean, years past, I got disappointed in myself because my MS flared up and I couldn't ski that day, right? Like Rob was talking about, like, I can't do it today. And I'd be so down on myself. And where this situation happened, and, you know, with the PTSD and the anxiety and all of the things just piling up, and I actually was proud of myself. I trusted myself. I knew I needed to go through my emotions. I needed to go through my own progression. My dog's under here sneaking. And I was proud of myself. Like, it wasn't disappointed in myself for the first time. Like, I did what I needed to do to take care of me, no matter what.
It is interesting. So, I mean, that's a profound revelation in a lot of ways. I mean, yeah. you took a step back. You were proud of yourself. You said that Brockton was there at the event. He's what, 14 now?
Right.
Yep.
And an athlete. What do you teach him from what you've learned?
I hope he sees, like, I mean, I always try to teach him, never give up, don't start something you can't finish, blah, 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 you know, all the wonderful parent things, but believing in himself and feeling that confidence in himself is the most important thing. Like, and him growing up in a disabled world, you know, around disabled athletes, where these athletes are incredible athletes, overcoming so many unbelievable things, and how they became into a wheelchair, or how they became disabled, or they were born with their disability. I think that in itself has been such an incredible lesson for him. Like, through Brockton growing up, we forgot to teach him about the Olympics. So he thought the Paralympics were the Olympics, and he didn't understand when Ted Ligety was skiing really, 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 really well in the 2014 games. He was like, what's wrong with him? What's his disability?
What's his disability? He goes, you know, Ted Ligety? I'm like, yeah, I've seen him in the gym a few times. You know, we kind of know each other by face. And, you know, what's his problem? I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, you know, he's not missing a leg. Like, I'm like, no, there's actually ski racing beyond the Paralympics.
Yeah. So I mean,
and you know, he was young, so
he's been taught like a different way of life. Like, he doesn't see people through the way they look in a chair, or whatever it may be. He sees through who they are. So
how about the way that he sees himself as an athlete?
I hope that, I mean, I think he has confidence. I know he has confidence now, but it took time. Like, he doubted himself through time. Like, he definitely, politics got in the way and felt like he was not doing his best. But I think for Brockton, like, he wasn't always the best one, but he's the one that never gave up, and the one that worked that much harder, and the one that didn't quit. Like, that's Brockton. He's just like his mom. And now he's very good and like confident. And now he, like, just coming out this year, like, he knows he goes out there and he gives it his best, and he's good. Like, he's a good egg.
I would imagine that that's exactly what you want to celebrate too, is that he doesn't give up and just keeps going. Talking about not giving up and continuing to go. What does that look like going toward Beijing? Will we see you there? Will we not? What do you think?
I hope so. Like, we are in our own progression, and I think if we're going to be competitive, we'll be there.
Right.
We're going to have to stay tuned.
You will have to stay tuned. So you're not giving me much of an answer there. And you've chosen.
I have never been that way coming into every games. I just feel like They announce the team when they announce it. Anything can happen between now and then. I could break my leg or, like anything can happen. So we just all have to wait and see who's named to the team. I don't mean to break a leg.
Could get a pandemic, who knows?
Oh, sheesh.
It's a crazy year. That is.
It
for
is.
sure.
And that in itself, like, right now, World Championships is going on. There's been World Cups all over, and making the choice not to travel and going to all those events was because of the pandemic and because of my health. Like I do have multiple sclerosis, so I'm high risk. So we chose, like, we need more training because of the past few years, and two, we don't want to be out there traveling, getting sick, just chasing races and just running myself down. Instead, let's build ourselves working towards the games and race where we can race more locally and stay safe.
Which could be a really good tactic.
It really could be.
It sounds really healthy. Sounds like a good tactic.
It puts a smile on my face. I'm home here in Park City, loving being around everybody and getting some damn good training in.
And the last games, like, we didn't medal, but we skied in every event with the exception of the slalom, which was a different story. But
that was
in 4 events, we had our best results of the season.
And we walked away like,
and that's all you can do.
We did awesome. Like,
you can't control where you finish. You just go there and try to put out your best product. And we did that.
And we felt good about it. Like, we walked away from those games, even though we didn't medal, probably feeling one of our best. Like, wow, like we put down some good solid runs. Like, that was good.
Got beat. Sometimes you just get beat, right?
I mean, everybody can't win.
But that year it was kind of, we were on a pretty heavy World Cup schedule. So it was kind of, race to train was kind of the way we were going now. And now it's going to be training to race, and we'll get there and be ready to go. So hopefully.
Well, training to race, being healthy, being happy. You've also had a bunch of support, from like Toyota and people like that. What does that mean for you as an athlete, for you as a Paralympian?
Well, being a Paralympian, you probably never were highly supported. I mean, just maybe through Ski Tam and stuff like that, but it wasn't like it is today. Like, when we went into the 2010 games, we had no sponsorships. We went into the 2014 games. Wait, did we have a sponsor in 2010? TD Ameritrade. We had one sponsor, right?
No, not then.
No, so 2014, 2 sponsors, and then 2018, like 10. I mean, like, it's just it's evolving every time, but having the support, like, from Team Toyota, they've been amazing. They have, like, they knew I had MS. They knew I was not going to be a part of the team because of how they structured the rules, but they know I broke my leg, like, and they didn't care. They're going to support me. They got my back. They believe in me, and having that support, like, we should have that from our team too, our NGB. Like, we should have that kind of support. Like, we believe in you. We got your back. But Team Toyota, like, they continue to step up and show people like USOPC and other sponsors how you should treat an athlete and how you should support an athlete. And they've been now more like a family than a sponsorship.
And how much stronger does that make you feel going into the games?
100% stronger. Like, unbelievably. Like, having people to support you, your community, your sponsors, it's unbelievable.
Well, and from doing this, it's not a cheap sport to begin with. So, you're putting a lot out there to get where you want to go, and having some dollars behind that to help you out goes a long way as far as being able to train.
Think of it times 2 in our case. Like, it's 1
expenses.
for you, 2 for us. And it's like,
everywhere we go, it costs twice as much.
Yeah. So they've taken care. They made sure we get, financially are able to get the training we need without being on the team, support us 100% without being on the team. Like, that's not, they want to show that they support their athletes and believe in them no matter what happens. Like, we all have ups and downs, and they supported us all the way through the roller coaster. And it means a lot. it makes me a little emotional.
I bet it does. And it's not just you, right? This summer, they sponsored every Paralympian that made the team, right?
Yes. And they're doing it for the winter too. They're incredible. Like, they're paving the way. I feel like they are showing other companies like how it should be done. It should be an equal opportunity. And they're making that statement.
And even before this year, you know, when we first hooked up with them 3-4 years ago, you know, before Korea, they sponsored an equal number of Olympians and Paralympians. And where a lot of companies are like, they'll sponsor 4 or 5 Olympians and like, oh yeah, we'll do 1 Paralympian, just throw that in. And that came from the top. That came from number 1 at Toyota. He said, hey, we're gonna do the same thing on this side as we do on this side.
Yeah.
It's awesome to have that kind of backing. And it's great for the whole Paralympic movement. And, you know, I get why they do it too. It's like, you know, when we first realized this, when we got actually to Vancouver, we're riding around the buses and we're like, oh, you know, the bus drivers are like, yeah, the Olympics was cool, but, you know, it's a lot of drama with those guys. And, you know, you guys are way more fun, you know, and then, you know, when you get into the sponsorships and, you know, telling the stories of the athletes, I mean, there isn't a Paralympian in the field that doesn't have a story that'll get somebody choked up, you know, of what they've had to overcome. And it's not always that way with the elite Olympic athletes. And some of them, yeah, but not always. So it's a good business model to be tied in with the Paralympic side, because they're good stories and they're good people
and good athletes.
Right. Good entertainment. And what's also really nice from the outside to see is that you as Paralympians are promoting your sport. You're doing your best to get people to tune in, to get people to see what you see, the work that you've put in, the turn that you've made, you know, those kinds of things. And to have somebody with a greater megaphone drawing a greater attention to you, to the other Paralympians, to the games, and to really, as you said, Rob, to the people and to the stories, which are what we see in the games, which are, you know, I mean, we see that, we go, okay, I want to be like her. I mean, that's as a little kid, that's what you want to think in the, you know, you're sitting on your couch going, yeah, I want to be like Danielle. I want to be like, you know, it's like, that's the greatest thing that can come out of the games. And absolutely. I know that you guys have a hockey game to go to, and I need to get you out soon. But so
did I do good enough for it? Am I allowed to go?
I don't know. We'll have to think about that. No, I think you brought a lot of energy here. This is definitely true. But just one question before you get out. What makes this a successful season for you?
What makes this a successful season? Well,
2022.
Well, I mean, we have all been through so much with the pandemic and everything that's going on in this world. And I think what makes this season more successful is I've had a different mindset of how much better we all are together. Like, I've always known that because I'm so big-hearted and love everybody in the world. But when we were put into this pandemic, I think people stepped back and realized that life is a lot more important, and things, we've been too busy to see things around us. And I think that being present in my life is teaching me to be so much more present in my skiing. And that has returned, like, also helped me, like, okay, I'm not going to race this day because it's not good for me. And so being present in my own body and in my own self, it's like I've learned how to, I don't know how to word it. It's some kind of energy where I'm feeling so present and knowing what I need and where I need to be. No matter what happens with Beijing, 2022 is a great year because I'm more mentally strong than I think I ever have been. And I thought I was before. I am so mentally strong and so happy to be with amazing support and community and sponsors and all of that. It's just like all coming together as this big, beautiful package. Does that make sense?
No, that was perfect. I think, before that, I wasn't sure if you'd done well enough to leave early. But I think that really clinched it. That got you.
I don't know how to put it all into words because I feel it in my heart and feel it in my body and my soul. Like I'm going out and I'm skiing with more presence and more excitement and like kind of like when I was brand new in the beginning, you know what I mean? And you know me from back then, like I was so excited and just ready to learn. And I feel like I'm born again. I don't know. It's amazing. It's so I think the pandemic did make me stop, and a broken leg and everything else made me stop and sit back and realize like ski racing is amazing and ski racing is great, but it's ski racing. You know what I mean? We have to think about all the tools that we've learned from the sport and all the tools that we were given in life and have that push forward.
What makes for a successful season for you, Rob?
I think it's, if we go to Beijing or not, if we feel like we put our best skiing out there, then that's all you can do. And you gotta always be happy with that.
Just kidding.
Didn't like the answer.
I'm kidding.
I think that's a good answer too, that it really is. Because you are in the sport of ski racing, right? And so to go out there and get your best skiing. You mentioned in Pyeongchang that you had your best results, but didn't medal. And it's so easy to make this an expectation driven sport.
Can't control the results, right?
The process is amazing. Like we got to learn to enjoy the journey and enjoy the process, because if you look back, that probably was a more exciting part than any of it was the process and the journey, right?
It's the thing you're going to remember. And sometimes the things that were the most sort of drudgery when you were doing, you look back and go, like that's the thing that I miss. And it's like, really? You don't miss the glamour? You don't miss like the top step of the podium? It's like, no, I miss the work that went into the transformation.
Yes.
So might well be Canada that is the thing that you look back on this year and go, that was the best part of my year.
It might have been, and it was awful, but it was transforming for sure.
And we did Cornish game hens for Thanksgiving up there.
We sure did.
Couldn't find a turkey.
Well, this is the nature of sport, right? You gotta
adapt.
You gotta adapt and you gotta move on.
Exactly. Well, thank you both for joining us. Best of luck. It sounds like it's successful all the way along anyway, but thank you for joining us and telling us about your process in approaching Beijing.
And thanks for always having our back too.
Hey, happy to be here. This is awesome. Happy to have you guys on. Thank you to all of you for joining us. The greatest gift you can give us is to like us, to tell your friends to tune in, that we will have another great story next week. So it will be a podcast eventually. It will be on YouTube. It'll be on Spotify. It'll be on Apple, all the places you find your podcast. Please, the greatest, if you can follow us, if you can like us, that is the greatest thing that you can do for us. So we will see you next week. And thank you, Danelle and Rob, and good luck. Have a great season.